ना, इसलिए
हाँ
मैं
रिकॉर्ड
आपसे
हो गया स्टार्ट।
हाँ रिकॉर्डिंग हो रहा है।
यस सर।
Dr. Jaiswal, you are seeing Dilip Raghavanji, na?
No.
He had come.
Yeah, I know. I heard his voice.
Then
yeah, he's
now?
there. Dilip is there.
Yeah,
Hi Dilip. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Good afternoon, sir. Hello, Mr. Raghavan. How are you?
Very well, sir. Thank you.
This is Manish.
Yeah, Manish. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Manish, I cannot do mute all in this.
सर नीचे
mute
ऑप्शन
all is
होगा
there.
नीचे ऑप्शन होगा सर एक.
Yeah. Sorry.
Is it okay?
Yeah. Dilip, what is your name?
I think he's just doctor. DR.
DR, okay.
Dilip
Yes, sir.
Raghavan.
DR.
Yeah, unmuted.
Yeah, my name appears as DR, though I'm not a doctor, but still it appears as DR, my initials.
The good abbreviation.
Yeah, if you can't earn a doctorate the hard way, do it through your initials.
Okay. Great.
डॉक्टर जायसवाल, if you want, I can help you. आप मुझे वापस होस्ट बना सकते हैं और मैं अगर अभी कोई एडिशन में या किसी में कोई प्रॉब्लम आ रही है, I can help it.
Yeah, I think all.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, better. I think more than 42 people have joined.
That's good.
Very nice.
Hello,
Yeah.
am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, fine. But I'm not getting your voice.
No, right now I have put it. I put the welcome slide.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Hello,
Yeah,
meeting is started.
yeah, we're at 4 sharp. Now we can start.
I think we should start now.
Okay.
We are audible? We are audible?
Yes,
Yes.
you are audible. Yes, yes.
Okay, fine, fine.
Hello, everybody. This is Naveen Shimpi.
Hi, welcome.
Naveen. Welcome.
Hello, Dr. Das.
Hi.
How are you, sir?
Good, good.
Nice, very good lectures you have arranged. Huh?
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Bhagwat, sir.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
So we will start, okay?
Yep.
How many people have joined?
Now 60.
About 60, but more
Okay.
I'm not able to see there. People are still joining. Yeah, 69.
Okay.
Okay, we will start, and I think Mr. Manish is helping us in where new people are joining. Oh, good morning, good evening, friends. This is Dr. Rajendra Jaiswal, welcoming you all on the behalf of Society for Industrial Chemistry on our series of webinars. This is the first webinar which we are conducting. Just to give you a brief, Society for Industrial Chemistry was founded in 2015 with industry people, academias, and research centers. And the main purpose while starting this was to bridge the gap between scientists, technology providers, and users. Like, and we have been last few conferences which we did where our aim was to connect the users and also the technology providers. Like we did a session where we had got architects on and coding people on the same platform, and we also did few conferences on surfactants. And now this we are having a series of webinars where I think we will be able to cover a lot of topics. So this is our first webinar, and I'll introduce today's first speaker. Anyway, I'll just brief the agenda for today. Today we'll have the talk by Mr. Dilip Raghavan, and then we'll have talk by Dr. H.A. Agarwal, Professor Jayesh Billare. So I welcome you all today. We have today Dilip Raghavan. For paint fraternity, he doesn't need any introduction. In fact, I just was trying to talk to someone, and I said, Mr. Dilip Raghavan is our media man. Like, he's a media person who keeps the overall media for the paint industry. So Dilip, here to have a formal introduction, Dilip Raghavan is editor, publisher of Paint India and responsible for delivering our industry's premier trade fair, Paint India. He is also editor, publisher for 3 other titles for the chemical industry related to textile processing, plastics, polymers, packaging, and cosmetics and home care. He regularly represents India at international forums as a speaker and as an author. Today, we are glad to have Dilip with us. Dilip, you can take over?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I'll just
Welcome, Mr. Raghavan. As the president, I just wanted to say welcome and thanks for accepting.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, Professor.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. So thanks everyone for having me here. under the aegis of the Society of Industrial Chemistry. I remember having delivered a lecture at UDCT about 2-3 years ago. I don't remember. Dr. Agarwal might remember better. Three years ago maybe. And I think the difference between particular session and today, difference in the world that we are living in. That time it was a real life session where I was physically at the venue designated blood, and whereas here it's now all in the virtual realm of space. So as I said, that's actually reflective of the times that we live in. Very, very unpredictable and challenging times. And actually that's the irony of it all. You know, right now, I'm actually as busy as I ever was. The productivity is a different matter altogether because I get about 10 calls every day on an average with people asking me, so what do you think is going to happen to the industry? Where do you see the industry headed? And all I can tell them is your guess is as good as mine, because in these particular times, uncertainty, unpredictability are the only thing that are a constant. So I think hazarding a guess on numbers, you know, people are so fixated with numbers. What kind of numbers are you looking at? Because as an industry that's actually been growing at consistently with a double-digit growth for almost 2 decades, and people say, where do you see the numbers growing? Now, it's just impossible for us to dive deep into numbers at this particular stage. Survival is actually the name of the game. You know, numbers will come back to normal as we go ahead, but survival right now is the name of the game. And another thing that I notice is everyone tends to believe that they are the ones who are worst affected. So if you speak to somebody from the raw material industry, they say, oh, you know what, we've sold nothing in the last 2 months. If you go to a distributor, he says, you know, we've just not had supplies coming in. We've not had goods being, you know, there's no offtake of goods. Formulators are saying, you know, there's absolutely no demand. What do we produce? Everybody is saddled with fixed costs. Everybody is, you know, looking at challenges on the manpower front. So what we tend to realize as we analyze the situation more deeply is that this is not a situation that's peculiar to any specific industry segment. It's not a situation that's peculiar to any individual. It's not a situation that's peculiar to any particular company. The strife is pervasive right across the supply chain. It does manifest itself in different ways depending on where you stand in the supply chain, the scale of your operations, the geography you belong to. Of course, these are the little variances that are there. But the common denominator is that there is a significant amount of disruption that's actually taking place in this industry right now as we speak. So in this little narration of the next 15 or 20 minutes, I'll just try and run you through my perspectives on some of the coping mechanisms that would be there, some of the opportunities that actually lie in this adversity, and what is the way ahead. You know, what are the changes that we could actually be looking at going ahead. Now, as I said, it's definitely not a strategy or a mantra or something. These are just very random thoughts. I do not think there is any one single fix for this particular solution. Definitely, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. And if anything, it's going to be a long healing process for all of us. So we all have to understand our own businesses. We all have to understand our own ecosystems a little better and try to come out of this adverse situation a little stronger. So in this particular phase of the last 2 months, and I dare say over the next month or so, survival is going to be the name of the game. Companies which can service their basic commitments in terms of course, their salaries. You know, we all have a commitment towards our employees who have been serving us. So servicing payrolls is going to be the biggest challenge for everyone. It already has been, and it's going to be, particularly in the absence of any significant kind of sales. So servicing your salaries, servicing your payrolls is going to be one of the biggest challenges. also for an industry that's largely driven by credit, we also have significant suppliers as an industry, significant commitments as an industry towards our suppliers. So we have to ensure their survival as well, their sustenance as well, because it's a double whammy for everyone in the supply chain. On the one side, you're saddled with outstandings from past sales, and at the same time, the pipeline for new sales is also dried up. So it's a kind of a constricting scenario that we are finding ourselves in, and this is where all of us have to try and do the best to our limited abilities to ensure that basic payment commitments can be made, so that those companies, those suppliers in turn can service their particular salaries and their statutory compliances. Now, statutory compliances are not going away anywhere in spite of what the government might promise. We have to still maintain a certain basic level of compliance in terms of our statutory dues, our statutory compliances, the operational conditions in which we are running our businesses. I think these are almost non-negotiable. We need to continue to be compliant, so that when better times come upon us, we are able to really kick on the accelerator and move ahead with our operations. So that's, of course, the line of sight vision in terms of what we need to do to just kind of stay afloat. I personally believe that amongst all this, in the grim scenario or amongst the darkness, there are significant opportunities that are also going to be there. I started by saying this is going to be a time and era of significant disruption. And we all know that disruption throws up great opportunities for an industry. If we just take one backward step and look at what our industry, when I say our industry, of course, I'm so used to addressing paint gatherings, so just excuse me for that. I'm referring to the paint industry, but by an extended reckoning, I would also say a lot of it is true for the chemical industry as a whole. So when you look back at our coatings industry, we've grown double digits, as I said, for the last 2 decades or so. But there have been certain pitfalls even within this double-digit growth. Let me explain. We've not been able to build a layer of value growth on top of our volume growth. The growth has, the linear growth of volume has actually been what our value growth has also followed. We've not really been able to build any significant amount of value on top of our volume. And that points to a certain degree of commoditization and stagnation in terms of innovation and R&D in our industry. Every industry has its own defining watershed moments in terms of technologies. You know, different industries have seen it. But when I look at our coatings industry, I find it very hard to look back at significant wow moments or significant milestones that have really, you know, let's say broken the glass ceiling and allowed us to really mature to the next level. I think in the last maybe even 25 to 30 years or even beyond, I can only think of something like, let's say, the evolution of CED perhaps for the automotive industry. I remember when Nerolac introduced it in Maruti. I also remember when powder coatings first made their way into our industry with a big order coming from Godrej. But beyond that, you know, there have been some small incremental changes, very little to speak of, especially in the decorative coating segment, which is actually the dominant segment of our industry. So I think this particular time, this particular
please mute all the mic, please. Please mute.
So this particular, yeah, sure.
I can't hear. Please mute all the mics.
Mr.
Okay, can I go on, please?
Yeah.
So, as I said, I think this adversity is going to bring upon a need, a necessity for us to innovate a little more, because times are not going to be like the past where we had a simple wave of organic growth to ride upon. So, hopefully this would spur a little more innovation and R&D, And given that we are speaking under the aegis of the Society of Industrial Chemistry, I think all of us have a very important role to play to try and elevate the quality of R&D, the quality of innovation that happens within an industry, within our industry. And more importantly, I think we should all jointly harbor a culture of innovation and R&D in our industry to help it progress. Also, these are the times when the default mindset is to put an embargo on all kinds of marketing, visibility, on all kinds of spend in terms of travel and customer engagement. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for companies to actually go ahead and learn more about their customers, engage more deeply with them, look at not only meeting their explicit needs, but also try and understand their implicit needs. Because when one person, when your customers are looking for elements of innovation, there lie latent hidden opportunities for you also to try and service those hidden needs. And perhaps you could actually be proactive and also see where you can help your customer climb up the value chain and do well for yourself in the process. This is even more telling when you consider the fact that this particular space of innovation or marketing or customer engagement is not going to be as crowded as it normally was, simply because of the default mindset of people to try and shut the pipeline of innovation, shut the pipeline of marketing, shut the pipeline of customer engagement. So it's not going to be as crowded a space as it is. So this is an opportunity for you to actually put yourself on an elevated pedestal in this particular context. Also, there are a lot of cross learnings from other industries that could be imbibed. In normal times, when we've been doing well as an industry, we are so consumed, so caught up with our own daily matters, production, order fulfillment, cost optimization, that we do not really have time to learn from other industries. We do not have time to learn from the experiences of other geographies. We do not have time to look here and there and try and see what's really happening in our world. Again, our industry is not one of the most regulated industries in terms of the legislations. So also it would be worth understanding what kind of legislations are there in other industries, because those are legislations are eventually precursors to innovation again. So try and understand what are the legislations in the coatings industry in other geographies. Try and understand what are the legislations, what are the innovations, what are the path-breaking discoveries that are there in other industries that are basically to do with the chemical industry, whether it's other formulating industries like home care, detergents, personal care, textiles, polymers, master batches. There are so many things happening in these industries, and there are a lot of learnings to be absorbed from these. Whether it's the coloration, whether it's the surfactant chemistry, whether it is the resin chemistry, whether it is application, there is so much to be learned from. Also, as a general statement, our industry, the formulation industry, has been significantly insulated from the application industry, which means we are not totally aware of the supply chain where our product goes. We only have let's say a level 1 visibility of where our product goes to the first level formulator. Where does it actually go into the application stream? What is it used for? What are the performance opportunities? What are the performance gaps? These are requirements that need to be harnessed for you to improve your own existence. So this is again a great opportunity for our industry to dig deeper and try and see what else we could do in the field of innovation. Coming down to the brass tacks, I think there's going to be a significant compression in demand for products. So many of us have actually been investing of late into capacity expansion, into marketing. So that is going to be a challenge that is going to be we're going to have to live with that challenge in the short term, though I still think the midterm and the long-term prospects are going to be robust for our industry. This is verbatim first-hand feedback that I have got from industry captains. Nobody is really concerned about the long-term prospects of the industry. They're still as robust as ever. They're still, in fact, if anything, once the dust on this particular situation settles, I think India is going to come out, emerge from this situation much stronger than it was. And it's going to mean opportunities right across the supply chain. But nevertheless, in the short term, these are, there is a healing process that's going on. Fundamentally, everything else is going to be fine, but the demand uptake has to really kick in. And when that happens is a complete matter of conjecture, because it's a complex supply chain we are dealing with. We have, on the one hand, the direct B2B consumers in the form of the automotive industry, the construction industry, the white good industry. Also, the decorative coating segment, which is largely where our paint industry in India is vested, is highly dependent on retailers, wholesalers, and also contractors. So we know we are struggling with the labor situation across the country. That has to normalize. The opening up of hardware and retail channels, that has to normalize. And of course, the eventual mindset of the end consumers, which is you and me as laymen, in terms of us wanting to go through the painting cycle once again. I think that is also going through a healing process that will take its own time to kickstart itself and really pick up. But once that happens, I think there are going to be bright prospects. Also, in terms of the situation, we are an industry that's largely dependent on oil, crude, and its derivatives. So the compression in price of oil could be a short-term opportunity for a lot of us to improve bottom lines, if not top lines. At least there could be a bit of savior and a bit of sustenance in terms of the bottom line. So, as I said, of course, in this limited time frame of 20 minutes, these are a few things that I could think of by way of opportunities: cost optimization, new vendor evaluation, localization of raw materials. There are so many things that could be done. I think also looking laterally in terms of your core competence, the paint industry has been, I would say, initially I was a bit skeptical about it, but then finally it's about sustenance and survival. I think the paint industry has been smart enough to realize the short-term requirement for various cleaning products, hand sanitizers, and they've used existing infrastructure and the downtime that's currently prevalent to actually diversify into these products and keep themselves afloat. So this is the kind of nimble-footedness and adaptive nature that our industry is going to need going ahead, also in terms of ensuring its own well-being. I could go on about opportunities, but I think they are endless. I think we've encapsulated a fair bit of it, in the limited time. I also think that stepping away from this particular phase has been a very unique one. I think I've just finished about 18 years in the industry, so I can't claim to be as experienced as some of you. But I think hearing from all of you, I think it's a very unique time that we are all seeing. We've seen challenges in the past of various kinds. Economic. We've seen social. We've seen a lot of adverse situations, but honestly, nothing of this severity and this magnitude. So it also begs the question as to whether this is really a sign for us as an industry, for us as a human race, to really introspect and see where we are headed. I think there's also a hidden message from nature that we need to, of course, continue to progress, and progress on the human front is of course something that's perennial, but without a proper robust industrial setup, that we've evolved to a stage where there cannot be proper progress without industrial progress as well. So we're definitely not advocating going back to the old days of wearing banana leaves and slapping cow dung on our home walls. We have to look at synthetic chemistry as a tool, as an empowering tool, but at the same time, we must harness its power and utilize it in a more responsible way. We must look at sustainability in the business context. We must look at sustainability in the environmental context. We must look at how we can be more empathetic to the life around us, whether it's human life, whether it's the flora and fauna. We must look at the planet. Look at it as it's now become an old cliche, but it never becomes irrelevant. It's a planet that we hold we owe this to the future generations. So we cannot be hampering its existence to the extent that it becomes unviable for future generations, our own children included. So we must ensure that this progress is tempered scientifically. with a strong element of sustainability. And while doing so, it's also an excellent opportunity for all of us to introspect. I think we as a human race have allowed our, in our zest to progress, which is completely fine. I think the fine balance between human need and human greed has gotten. I think there's a distinct imbalance right now. So I think this is a good time for us to introspect and really try and understand it in the context of us as individuals, us as companies, us as a country, us as an ecosystem, us as a human race, to really try and see what is it that we really need for ourselves. How much should we really be doing in the context of the so-called industrial progress that we are all in the midst of, and we must look at course correction if and where needed. I think this is a great opportunity. In a few months, it's my conviction that we'll be up and running with normal operations, and the pitfall of that is that we are not going to have the time and the opportunity to introspect and take this backward step and look at a more holistic view of our business. So I think it would not be a bad idea for us to really look at this in a holistic way and try and redefine our priorities. And of course, in doing so, we continue on our path to progress. I think India has a very, very bright future in this whole situation. If anything, we've come out with our reputation enhanced as compared to a lot of other countries in terms of how we have conducted ourselves in handling the situation within the country. Could have been better is always the case, but I think for a country of 1.3 billion people with the challenges that we face, we've done reasonably well. I think we've also been able to look outwards and extend a helping hand to a lot of other countries, which has been noticed and appreciated. So I think India will become a partner of choice, a partner of preference in the global race of progress, and there will be huge opportunities to harness. As a sum total of all of this, I would like to continue by saying that it's going to be a short-term struggle or a short-term challenge for all of us to circumvent and overcome individually and collectively. But after that, I see a lot of bright prospects for us. But what is certain is that the general feeling or the general sentiment or outlook of status quo is not necessarily going to be the case. We cannot assume that things are going to be exactly the way they were. There will be as many opportunities, if not more. Those opportunities could be in different hidden pockets. And that is where we have to be adaptive, nimble-footed, and alive enough to acknowledge those opportunities, capitalize on them, and ensure our survival. So these were a few random thoughts that I had to share, and I hope I've done this being a non-technical session in a rather technical environment. I hope I've done justice to it. I think I'll hand the stage back to Dr. Jaiswal and Dr. Das. Thank you for having me here, and I remain accessible for any questions that I could take. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Dilip. Great for your nice words here. I think you were the first one to got hit with Corona, because at the right onslaught, I think we had Paint India, and we had a lot of discussion with you. So, which finally we had to take off to avoid any further disturbance because of Corona, or maybe more spreading of that, right?
Yes, that's right. Normally, when I address forums like this, one accusation that's hurled at me is that it's easy for you to preach because you don't have to deal with supply chain issues, because I'm not a manufacturer, I don't participate in the supply chain. But this is one unique situation where not only did I get affected as much as all of you, I probably was all of your first line of defense.
No, we were together. I'll say we were together. The whole industry was together with you, because we were like, we are the ones who are like, also we get an advantage because of Paint India, and we have to share the things with you.
Yeah, so
yeah, we'll have
it was 2 years of preparation, and we had to call it off 12 days before. We had to postpone it, but that's where I go back to what I said. Okay, it's always good to practice what you preach. As I said, there are some things that have to go beyond business considerations. The safety and the health of people in general, and in this particular case, people whom you work with and you're associated with for a long time. that had to take precedence, and I think we made the right call. And as I said, there will be enough opportunities in the future for all of us, and we'll come back much stronger.
Okay. We'll have a few reactions from people if somebody would like to.
And I have a
Yeah. Can we, people would like to ask any questions or something, they can raise your hand.
Yeah.
yes.
I have one question.
Yeah, Mr. Khurana.
Yeah. I think in organizations, they are having virtual exhibitions nowadays. Don't you think that is going to happen in India very soon?
Dr. Khurana ji, आपका आवाज थोड़ा cut. Your voice is not audible.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I
better.
think I got the gist of the question.
Yeah, the question is that a lot of organizations have virtual exhibitions in Europe. Do you think that we can have similar exhibition in India for paint industry?
Yeah, so let me, just delve into that in a few different elements. I think the fundamental objective of any exhibition or any forum or any conference, besides the business element, is a human interaction. So we must not undermine that element of human interaction that is there. Of course, in the given circumstances, this could be a good interim solution. It could achieve a bit. But we must also understand that it's not that without these platforms like exhibitions, there is not enough business being conducted. There is enough business being conducted in any case. If anything, these exhibitions are platforms for people to converge together, and there is a very, very strong human element which would be missing in a virtual setup. Having said that, we as an organizer have to look at different strategies. As long as you have the industry connections, you have the domain knowledge, and you have the credibility, it is a matter of teleporting your platform from virtual to real or from real back to virtual. So we are prepared in terms of it's finally a technology play. There is technology available a dime a dozen. So we are, as long as our core competence is established, which is there, being around for 70 years, we know the industry, we know the supply chain dynamics, we know the players, and we have the credibility. So we are able to use multiple delivery mechanisms to do this. And coming closer to the while, we will do what is right and ensure that everyone's money, time, and efforts are well spent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions or any comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Raghavan, you get to have a bird's eye view of the industry, and that's why I'm putting this question particularly to you. And one big difference from many other chemical industries and paints is paints has probably less of the continuous processes. But when you restart after a big gap,
yes,
safety takes a major important place. And especially since the government is telling people to start with 50% staff, and usually the startup actually involves a lot more. Do you have any comments or observations of this kind where some of the mishaps, I mean, I don't want to take names of the individual companies, but some of the cases where maybe it was caused by having less people in place during a startup?
Yeah, so well pointed out. It's, the paradigm of continuous process versus batch process or serial or whatever you call it is very, very relevant to the paint industry. Also, when you consider the number of units which, the SME units which run these kind of batch processes or which do not have, adequate automation, it's even more true. But I must say, to the credit of the paint industry, that this was a point that was, cognizance was taken of this point, and many industry associations, many individuals, I have been a part of some of this. There was a lot of education that was done pre-opening. And if you look at the number of accidents that have actually happened in the in the industry in general. There have been some unfortunate ones, and there have been casualties as well. But in the paint industry, it's there not been that many, and it's not necessarily been a function of the an opening up after a prolonged lockdown. So I think the paint industry, to its credit, and I would even say pleasantly, surprisingly, has taken heed of this particular situation, and a lot of precautions went into the opening up of the industry.
Thank you.
Okay. I think I'll ask Mr. Manish to unmute everybody. We'll have a round of applause for Dilip, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dilip, you'll have a virtual clap round from us. Okay.
So when the forum is virtual and the talk is virtual, the applause must also be virtual.
As you said, there is a lack of people touch out here in that.
That's
okay.
It's okay. It's a matter of time.
Okay. I'll ask Dr. Subrata to take over from here.
I request everybody to kindly mute their mics. Jaswalji, please. Vinod Karwaji, please mute your mic, sir. Jaswalji, please speak up.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, doctor, you can introduce Dr. Agrawal.
Yeah. So it gives me a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Harish Agrawal. He is also a very famous person in the paint industry, and maybe doesn't need a formal introduction. But just because of formality, he has done his MSc in Mumbai, and then he has settled in New Delhi. He has done his PhD from King's University, USA, and his areas of interest is in paint additive. He is also past president of IFCA and Kurt Society, and he is member of many societies. And he is also a member of our Society for Industrial Chemistry. So let me welcome Dr. Harish Agrawal to and begin his talk.
I'm audible.
Yes.
Hello. Okay.
Dr. Iswal, just find out whether Professor Bella has come already.
Sorry?
Can we know? Professor Bella has joined or not?
Wait, I'll just check.
Yes, I'm here. This is Jayesh Pillai here. I'm on it. So whenever I'm listening.
Harish sir, please unmute yourself.
Dr. Jaiswal, can you start the screen sharing?
Sorry, sir?
Screen sharing.
हाँ. Yeah, Dr. Agrawal, you can share now.
Yeah. Welcome you all. Thank you, Dilip. You have given the very good information about our paint industry during this lockdown period and how to come out from this situation. That also you have mentioned. It was a very nice presentation. Now, today's topic is about the additives. We are manufacturing paints, and additive plays a very important role in the paint manufacturing process. As now the paints are divided into two parts. One is the solvent-based paint, one is the decorative industrial paints. Actually, there is a paint division in four types. One is the water-based paint, second is the solvent-based paint, third is the powder coating, and fourth one is the powder paint. So powder paint, they include all teas and plaster and other things, whereas the solvent-based paint, industrial paint, and decorative paint, similarly for water-based and so on. So additive plays a very important role in the paint industry. See, now there is a lot of competition in the paint industry. We have to make our product as per the international requirement. It becomes very necessary for us to add a proper additive to get the international quality. If you want to stand in the market, you have to give the very good product. And for that, I'll just say institutions and the industry both are playing a very important role, because most of the things are coming from the institutions. All development work and other things we are getting from the institution. So the institutions, they play a very important role in the paint industry. First, I'll go through the one very Albert Einstein quotes. Imagination is more important than knowledge. You can just see about the slide. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. I have no special talent. I am only a passionately curious, a person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new. This is a famous quote from Albert Einstein. Now there is one more quote from our late President, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. If you want to shine like a sun, first burn like the sun. जैसे कि आप लोगों ने सुना होगा, सोने की चमक बढ़ाने के लिए भी सोने को तपाया जाता है, तभी आप उसकी चमक मिलती है. So if you want to shine like a sun, first burn like the sun. Now you can see a flavor here. Now the people from the Bombay, they go to the Juhu Chowpatty and have dahi vada, bhel puri, fruit salads. From Gujarat, they can go to the Ahmedabad, they can have all the taste. People from Delhi can go to the Bengali market and they can enjoy such type of foods. They are getting a different kind of flavors. That is because of the additives for them. The masala they put, that is the additive. And because of the masala, you are getting the taste. But sometimes what happens if you add a more masala, you will get a lot of problem with your stomach. So additives or masalas to be added in a minimum quantity or required quantity, not quantity. Now I just give you the introduction about the paint. What is paint? This is the paint additive. So basically I have to give you the introduction about the paint. Paint is used to decorate, protect, and prolong the life of the natural and synthetic material and acts as a barrier against environmental conditions. Paints may be broadly classified into decorative paints applied on a site to decorate and protect building and other objects. Industrial paint and coating, which are applied in the factories to finish manufactured goods such as the car, furniture, machinery, etc. Basically, the paint is a very important subject. Paint gives the protection and decoration both. Now, the basic component of paint, let's go through the pigment, extender, binder, additives, and solvent. The solvent in water-based paint may be in a water, and in case of an industrial paint, it may be an aliphatic solvent also or aromatic solvent also. Now I'll define, just give you the example of each of the products. Typically, there are 5 main components in paint. Pigments, they give the color or hiding. Suppose you want a blue color, you have to add phthalocyanine blue. Suppose you want a yellow color, you have to add middle chrome, or you want to use a chrome free, then you have to go for the benzidine yellow or that. So they give the hiding or color to the paint. Extender or filler, they reduce the cost. Basically, they are also type of pigment, but they reduce the cost of the paint, and some aesthetic properties are also obtained because of the extender. So extender, they play a very important role also. Now the binder, they are the backbone of the paint industry. Binders are very much important. They give the adhesion to the substrate. Binder may be of a different kind. For industrial paint, suppose you want to talk solvent-based paint, the binder may be an alkyd-based binder. It may be a polyurethane. It may be an epoxy. It may be acrylates. It may be an chain stop alkates, and so many other type of alkyd. If you want to talk about the water-based, you will get the acrylic emulsions, pure acrylic emulsion. You will get an elastomeric emulsions. You will get the different kind of styrene emulsion, and you will get the other SBR latex emulsions also. Now the solvent, they are for the dilution purpose. So solvents, as I told you, in water-based paint, water is the solvent, whereas in case of the liquid paint or the solvent-based paint, it may be an aromatic or aliphatic solvent. Now the last point, today's presentation is totally on the additives. So additives, they are very important. They enhance the various paint properties and performance. So we'll discuss mostly on the additives. What are the different type of additives? What are the role of additives? How the additives are added, and how they perform. Now before that, I'll just go through the manufacturing process of because some of the additives, they are added during the charging also before grinding. So they are called the grinding aids. So the additive plays a role in different places. Some additives are added afterward. So this is the flow chart of the manufacturing process of the solvent-based paint. Charging of the binder and solvent, addition of additive, the addition of pigment extender, then grinding. Grinding may be machinery, maybe dyno mill, maybe sand mill, maybe a triter mill, maybe ball mill, as required as the application. Then the stabilization process is there. I'm not going much detail because the time shortage is there. And then letdown process, after that 100% completion, then it will go for the quality control. Quality control department, it will go to the packing department. From packing department, it will be ready for the dispatch. Now the cause of the paint defects, why the additives are added into the paints? This is a question, why the additives are added to the paint. Paint film defects can appear during the immediately or after application, or become more apparent after the coating is cured. It means when the paint is applied, after the curing, the defects may appear. When you just make paint, at that time also the property may be differ. So the cause of the paint has to be exactly determined. Most paint defects are the result of lack of cleanliness, surface preparation, application error, dirt particles, lack of attention to the instruction. Instructions given by the manufacturer, they are not following, so defects are occurring. Now you can see the most major paint defects: pittiness, bleeding, blistering, chalking. I'll just tell you the pittiness. Some surface is not prepared properly. Surface is not prepared properly. A defect which appears of the paint film married by a small particle or extension of material, typically dust, grit, broken paint skin, and fragment or the bristle from the brushes are also creating the brittleness. Now the next part is the bleeding. Bleeding is a kind of paint defects. Bleeding refers to the diffusion or seeping of the soluble dye from the substrate to the top coat color. In general, bleeding causes a spot-like coloration of the top, mostly producing a reddish yellowish color. So suppose the lower surface gets colored, then you can say the bleeding is there. Now the blistering, this effect is also there. Blistering or the bubbling, as the name suggests, it is the blister or bubbles on the surface which has been painted. It is basically the loss of adhesion between the paint film and the surface, which is usually caused by heat, moisture, or combination of both. Chalking. The term chalking refers to the paint. If the paint is exposed to the atmospheric condition, then what happens due to the ultraviolet ray, the chalking can appear and it will come out some particles on your hand. So that is called the chalking. Now other effects are the seizing effect or the fissile, wrinkling, sagging or flaking. Now the seizing effect or the fissile effect, there is a defect. You can see the bowl type of a structure on the film, that is called the fissile structure. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, perfect.
Okay, okay. So seizing is a visible coating defect that occurs due to an improper paint application on metal surface intended to prevent corrosion. It is characterized by the surface breakage of a wet paint film leading to the exposure of the base metal substrate. Now wrinkling. Wrinkling occurs when a thick layer of the paint is to be coated on the surface. In this case, the paint film gets shrink and develops crewel on the surface as shown in the picture. It can be prevented by allowing the undercoat to dry completely prior to application of the final coat. Now the sagging. Sagging paint is defined as downward movement of the paint film between the time of application and drying, resulting in an uneven coating. The paint defect is the most prominent if the thick layer of the paint is applied on a vertical or the inclined surface. Now the last, flaking. Flaking or the lifting of a paint film is due to the improper application of primer coat over putty and not being completely covered. It can be due to the application of paint on insufficiently dry surface. It can also be due to the shrinkage or expansion of surface causing the paint film to move. So these are, apart from these, there are so many other defects also, like a gloss retention you will get, dirt pickup is there, so many other defects are there. When the painter is doing paint, lot many effects are you can see. So many other defects are also there, they can be discussed. But right now, the most probable defects I have taken into the account, and only those only I am discussing. Now the introduction to additive. What are the additives? Additives are the special component of paint. It is used in a small quantity to impart additional characteristic and enhance quality to the paint. Use of additive in the right order at the time and in the right proportion can help to improve the appearance, durability, flow of paint, and various other coating properties. See, additives are in a special type of compound, and the additives are always to be added in a very small quantity, I'll say. Additive percentage generally in the paints are in the range of 1 to 3%, not more than that. Sometimes even in the points also you have to add the additive. The selection of additive is very important for the paint. Suppose what happened, for example, during grinding, if you are adding lot of surfactant, there is a physical dispersion and the grinding starts. So what happens, the mechanical force also created. So lot of foaming you will get. So for that, what you will do, you will add foam, anti-foam. Once you add anti-foam, the foam will go. And if you increase the doses of the anti-foam, what happens is the drying time hamper. You will get a lot of change in drying time. So the selection and the proper addition of additive, it is very important. Careful selection of the right additive plays an important role in the performance of coating, and its end-use application. Formulators have a lot to consider while choosing an additive. Today's market requires not only functional but sustainable and high-performance additives. Generally, what happened in older days, the simple few additives were available. Nowadays, the broad spectrum additives are available as per the choice. Sustainability is a very important phenomenon nowadays. Therefore, the additive has to be also of the good quality. Additive also have to work well with new generation of the resins, pigments, and dispersant. In the earlier days, what happened? Only the alkyd, linseed oil alkyd or the castor oil alkyd. So very simple, two alkyd theories were there. Now the lot of hybrid theories are available. You will get the cross-link polymers also. You will get the acrylate chemistry. You will get the polyurethane chemistry. You will get the polyester polyurethane chemistry. So lot of chemistries are there. You have to see the compatibility of additive in those systems. Otherwise, you will not get the results. How the additives are improving the paint performance. Additives are a formulation of other ingredients that supplement the paint mainly to improve its physical properties. Additives might be added to the paint to smooth out brush strokes, inhibit mold growth, promote faster drying, or help the paint to resist set. Those defects I already discussed. So this is about that. All additives should be used with a proper care because they are like a potent medicine that must be used with a proper selection and with caution. As I told you, they play a very important role, but the addition and the selection of additive is very important. See, either if you have more of the experience in the field, most of the people are manufacturing paint from last so many years. So they know very well how to add the additive and how to work with the additive. But even though if you have a good knowledge about the additive, you use additive according to your choice. Otherwise, you have to listen the instruction of the manufacturer. And you have to follow the instruction and accordingly you have to add the additive. Don't try to add additive without knowledge. Now, while adding additives, there are the challenges in front of the paint industry or the formulator. First is to reduce the carbon footprint. Our main motto has to be to reduce the carbon footprint. We have to use the additive with the low VOC, low volatile organic component, because there is a lot of requirements. Ozone layer is disturbed, it is converting, green chemistries are required.